Welcome to the Not Badger for the week ending December 17th, 2016. Here, thanks to our privileged straight cis men who are trying to work off their guilt from their crimes of historical and felony oppression, we have compiled a collection of funny, interesting, and hopefully useful clips from our most watched shows. Enjoy the spoils of their hard work. In Polecat Cast number 92, we talk about the news of the week, including mailing used tampons, paternity fraud, and banning Uber drivers from flirting.
In the feminist world, that is deemed acceptable protest, even though it's imagine for a second that a bunch of men decided to send, semen-soaked something or another to a female leader, a female civil servant, to protest some law on male behavior. That women don't do, some behavior that men do that women don't. There aren't really very many. There are a lot of behaviors that feminists say men do that women don't, but not very many that women actually don't do. But in any case, there would be outrage, coming from every corner of the world, every just little nook and cranny. Oh, how dare you, you evil, bodily fluids, danger. And it's a biohazard, and it's not just because of sexually transmitted diseases. This is a bodily fluid. It rots. By the time it gets there, it's going to have all kinds of bacteria in it. So even if there's not, some of the diseases that are the more well-known things you don't want to get, it's going to have botulism. It's going to have salmonella. It's going to stink. It's disgusting. And the stupidest part is they're sending something disgusting to a civil servant to protest not being allowed to do something disgusting. I mean, feminists cannot be angry or cannot be honest, about abortion. They have never been able to be honest about abortion. When they want to talk about how much access a woman should have to it, then it's a medical procedure. And it's all biological, and it's all, a woman's body, and it's all tissue, human tissue, and it should all be dealt with as medically as possible, and we should be as sensible about it as possible. But as soon as the law starts treating it as a medical procedure, and it has to meet the same regulations that other medical procedures have to meet, with the same degree of cleanliness, and the same degree of care with which we treat human tissue, because it's dangerous to just dispose of it any way we want. It's dangerous to put it in the landfill because it can put germs in the water table. And then all of a sudden it's a privacy issue. It's not a medical issue, and we shouldn't be treating it like other medical issues, and how dare you, and blah, 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 and woman this and woman that. You know what? It's one or the other. You don't get both. It's either a medical issue all the time and needs to be treated like a medical procedure with the same regulations as other medical procedures, or it's a privacy issue and you can go back to having back alley abortions in the front alley like Dr. Kermit Gosnell did.
When they do things like this, they're exposing a great many people to possible pathogens. This not only does it expose the person that's getting the package or the person that's opening the package, but we're talking about an entire system of mail which can be potentially polluted by this stuff. Like, you're talking about, like, these packages can go in with, into giant bins filled with other mail and can then pass infectious diseases onto other people's mail. So this is just incredibly negligent on the part of the people that are doing this. If you want to protest, go to their office and do it in person. Sending this stuff through the mail exposes a lot of people to a lot of potentially dangerous substances, frankly. And it's negligent and it's stupid.
Go on record and say, "Thank you very much for sending me your essence, lady. I like the way it smells. It reminds me of your goddess power." From that moment on, they will burn everything that comes out of them.
Reminds me of my time in the womb.
Yeah, he should
Objectify it.
he should put every tampon on a gold plaque and then hang it in his office. Complete with the name of the person whose tampon. I was given this great and divine gift from this woman. And then, watch
No,
them.
it's the holidays.
Yeah. So, seriously, sexualize it. They'll stop sending it. They'll start protesting against the sexualization of tampon. This was inside a vagina.
What's the name of the candle holder that is used during Hanukkah?
Oh,
Menorah?
the menorah.
Menorah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just deck that out with the tampons.
Yeah,
Oh.
put one in there.
No.
Make it the festival of lights.
Ew.
And
You're
then
an awful person, Max.
put a little wick in top.
The
Like
festival of
everybody
light
else is making
days.
something equally worse.
Oh God, Hannah, no.
That was so wrong. This is to think of this another way. When you work in medicine, anywhere from top to right down to the lowest paid nurse's aide out there, and I'm at the low end. I'm a direct caregiver for intellectually disabled adults. If there is any biohazard, you have specific protocol for taking care of it.
Right.
Even minor bodily fluids that are not known for, the sexually transmitted disease, things like not bloodborne pathogens. People don't think of bloodborne pathogens coming from other bodily fluids. But if somebody throws up, there's a protocol for taking care of that. If somebody has sanitary napkins that need to be taken care of, there's a protocol for taking care of that. You have to wear gloves if you're going to touch it, because you can't just wash your hands and be sure that you're safe from having had a transfer of germs. This is common sense, really.
Yeah, that's why they have those boxes at doctors' offices and in hospitals that are marked biohazard. They put this stuff in there for a reason.
That's why every diabetic and anybody else that has to have injections at home, like for allergies or anything like that, has to have a sharps container for their needles at home. It's everything has to be taken care of that way. You cannot just even a needle that has been used by somebody who is confirmed to not have anything that anybody else would be scared of. You still have to use a sharps container. You still can't just dispose of that without something like that. Medical waste has to be taken care of properly in order to protect the people around you. And this is so typical of feminists, to not care about the impact of their actions on other people, or even the potential impact of their actions on other people. They don't only care about the impact of other people's actions on their politics. What really blows my mind about this is that they came up with all these excuses. When I think the reality is they don't like Wonder Woman because Wonder Woman is also, for women, a symbol of accountability. She did not make excuses. She did what needed done. And she's always done that. That's always been part of Wonder Woman's character. She was equal, not just because she had strength and capability and so on, but because if it needed done, it was up to her. If she saw it, it became her responsibility. And feminists don't like responsibility.
Honestly,
They
I
don't
don't
like
even think it's that,
accountability.
Hannah.
I do. I do. I don't think it's the social. Like they use the progressive stack, but the progressive stack is just a tool for social justice types. For the progressive types, the progressive stack is just a tool for them, as a get out of accountability free card, as a card they can play to get their way in any other area of human contradictions or human conflict. It's not a basis. It's just a tool. It's like a crowbar for them. And I think the reality is they don't like having somebody who's an example of what is real strength as opposed to the strength of victimhood. Wonder Woman's not a victim.
The idea that you would need to nominate a fictional character is dumb on its face. It only shows me how much of a joke the United Nations is. I mean, seriously. A fucking joke. If if the United States government was not like the government itself, not the United Nations, was nominating like fictional cartoon characters like Optimus Prime. Actually, that'd be kind of cool. Like fictional cartoon characters as to represent something, right? I think that to call it ridiculous and infantile would be appropriate. But when the UN does it, I mean, how do people take them seriously after that? Like, that's ridiculous on its face, first of all. I mean, the Angry Birds representing, like, I don't know, eco-friendly shit is it's just stupid. Secondly, the Wonder Woman thing, I think that the main issues they took with it was, yes, they said that she's white, so that she represents, I don't know, the progressive stack politics bullshit about, white normative, whatever. And then the other thing is, which is also important, she is attractive to men because they say she wears skimpy, skin-tight outfits that show a lot of skin. So what they want is a Wonder Woman in like the burqa or something. Like that's what I think, that if they were going to have a woman to represent the United Nations, it would be a woman in a burqa. And considering the people who are probably some of the most prominent voices at the United Nations, like that have a chair at that table, I wouldn't be surprised, because I believe like the United Arab Emirates and lots of other Islamic countries are on the board, and they probably wouldn't have a problem with that change. So, and another thing is that Wonder Woman is, despite the fact that the character comes from an island, and you probably assume that she's Greek, she wears the American flag as a costume, so she's basically an American icon. And she was, and I believe that the guy who created Wonder Woman, whose name I always forget, he's like a 3-parter, and he was into bondage and shit. But I believe that guy was American too, and so he was basically like, I'm going to contribute like all the other people because these superheroes came out of wartime. And there was a great thing I saw about Jordan Peterson where he was talking about the mythology of superheroes and how they, in many ways, we refer to them as modern gods or modern mythology. And I think that this is definitely related to that. So I'm actually okay with Wonder Woman having nothing to do with the UN because I think she's better than that, in my opinion. And hopefully, maybe they'll just replace her with the Amy Schumer Barbie, and then they'll have what they want. And we'll have what we want.
The new date rape Barbie.
Yes.
Complete with drunk as a skunk Ken.
I'm glad that male victims are being acknowledged, like that they exist at all. And I think that the continuing of conversations like this and others on the net, whether it's on YouTube or other articles or blogs or alternative media, is making it to where the larger publications can no longer really ignore it, and that means it inevitably gets into the public consciousness, and that's all great. I'm glad that people are acknowledging that this can happen, but there's still a couple of things missing from the equation here. First off, there is what Hannah pointed out, which is a consequence of, in part, feminists' failure, and maybe even the average person's failure, to acknowledge women as agents, as capable of doing harm to their partners, as capable of being abusive, whether physically, emotionally, or mentally. Another thing is interesting how they make, this woman makes this quote, which I want to point out. She says, "We know that nearly half of women killed in the UK are killed by an intimate partner or former partner." Now, the reason why I'm going to focus on this for a second, she doesn't designate that the intimate partner is male or female, which is important because, lesbian couples exist as well as heterosexual couples. And lesbian couples, according to the statistics, are the couples that are the most violent when it comes to domestic violence. They're the ones that engage in it the most often. While, interestingly enough, gay couples, male and same-sex, male couples, are the least likely to be to engage in domestic violence or to have that happen. And so she is choosing her words very carefully, and I think that's purposeful, because then she's not lying when she says nearly half of women are killed by an intimate partner or former partner. So that could also include women, and that doesn't necessarily, I'm not trying to exclude men here, but when you look at the statement on its face, I think it's very easy for people to fall into the trap of, oh yeah, that's men doing that. But no, it's women doing that as well as men doing that. And then she says, compare with the 6% killed, and not always by a woman. So in that statement, you see that there's a subtle, sort of sleight of hand that happens where she says, oh yeah, and here's instances where men are killed. However, not always women are doing it because gay couples exist. So she eliminates lesbian couples in the first half of the sentence, and then includes gay couples in the second half of the sentence. Even just by implying it, because that's the only way the only place you can go. Because as far as I know, Zers aren't killing people as much.
This goes back to the I can't think of welfare reform laws. There was a specific name for the welfare reform law, and I can't think of it anymore. I think it was just called the Welfare Reform Act. But in that act, the law provides for financial restitution to the states from the federal government for efforts to collect child support, on the basis that if poor women, single mothers, were receiving enough child support, they wouldn't need welfare. Which is bull, because what they do then is they go into the welfare office and they work out, because I have sat and listened to women do this. They go into the welfare office and they work out with their caseworker how they can maximize their collected income from various sources without losing any of it. So they get just enough child support from their baby daddies to, or their alleged baby daddies to give them a little extra cash, but not enough to make them ineligible for welfare payments. And some states will keep the child support, so it's clearly not for the child. It's to restore the state's coffers, and then they're still getting money from the federal government for collecting it. So Michigan, going after this guy for 26 years, they were collecting money since at least 2000. They were collecting money from the federal government to continue to go after this guy, because it's just for their efforts. It's not. It doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's just for them being able to say, yes, we are trying to collect child support. Ohio responded to this change in law by making it mandatory to pay through the state. So if you don't pay your child support through the state and you live in Ohio, Ohio can say that was just gifts that you gave to your ex, and you still owe all of that child support, and try to collect it. And and because you are paying through the state, they can tell the federal government they're making you pay, and they can collect from the federal government for that. This is how government works in the United States now. They're profiteering on people's pain. Kind of like, the way they profiteer on cigarettes. They're profiteering from people's addiction. They're profiteering from people's pain and people's dysfunction here.
Here's the thing, it's funny about this is the guy who owns this brewery, has he never been on the fucking internet before? I mean, come on.
No, what they should have done was submitted it to 4chan to get names.
Oh, Jesus Christ, dude. I was getting ready to say, I was like, there are things, we have seen very, very public examples of how this sort of thing goes bad. We've seen it with the fucking Coke thing. We saw it with the Microsoft Tay thing, the bot, numerous things where people, you can't trust the internet. I mean, come the fuck on. I mean, I love the internet, y'all, but there's some great people out there, but y'all a bunch of assholes for the most part. Let's just be real. You get shit like this. It's like, how are you going to set up a system whereby there is no human interaction on something like this? That is, I just think whoever is in charge of this was just an idiot. They're just really fucking dumb, and just let's not make a big deal about it. People just
have the laugh though.
Stupid.
That's hilarious.
It's a good laugh.
It is funny.
That's what I was getting at. It is funny, but it's just like, come on, man, y'all gotta smarten up a little bit. You gotta be a little bit more savvy than this.
It's better than Beery McBeerface, which is probably what 4chan would have went with.
Seriously. I mean, it is funny. Don't get me wrong. I was like, come on now.
Here's
You gotta
the
be
thing,
smarter
though.
than this.
The reason that people do things like this guy did, this particular type of trolling, is because of the delicious, delicious outrage that it elicits. You know, you get all kinds of punny names and all kinds of fun and all kinds of cuteness and everything in a situation like this, and then there's this one, you know, Willard McBain sitting there for the reference, sitting there going, how can I piss people off, or how can I get somebody's goat? He's sitting there in the background laughing, and of course he's going to come out with something like date grape, because the minute, you know, the special snowflakes see it, you're going to get, oh my God, they said date grape! This is the most horrible thing that has ever happened! Atrocity! We have to do something about this! We're hurt! We're damaged! We're injured by these terrible, terrible words! Oh my God, what are we going to do? And the company has to deal with this.
That was a good Chris Rock impression, man.
Chris Rock.
These people are so upset. We have to deal with these upset people. We have to fix this horrible situation. Our company's name is now in the gutter because of these, and all this guy did was utter two lousy words that could have been flushed. They could have been ignored. All they had to do was vote the shit down that they didn't like and vote the shit up that they did like, and then that's it. But no, they had to freak out over it. And you know, to be honest, I could see 1,000 bottles of date grape out there and not blow a gasket like these people did. And it's just sad that they gave the troll that much power.
On Doge and Bunny number 5, we look at the Rubin Report's interview with Liana K, or whatever we could stand of it anyways.
I know now, in retrospect, we think, oh no, second wave feminism was embraced. It wasn't. Oh, first wave feminism, the right to vote, was embraced. It wasn't.
Okay, so some things about that really quick. First wave feminism, it wasn't called feminism back then, but the suffragette movement, I guess we'll put it that way. We talked about this on the show before. There were two groups, the suffragettes and the suffragists. One of them were terrorists, and the other one wanted equality, but not just for women, but also for men. So this wasn't just about women's suffrage and the fight to end it. Just a joke. So I'm not really sure what Liana K is saying here. I noticed that she and many, many other feminists that have talked about the suffrage movement, they don't make that distinction between the two groups, the suffragists and the suffragettes. So that's the first thing. And as far as second wave feminism goes, well, even the first one, if it was really unpopular, women would not have gotten the vote.
And that leads into my point. We're getting into a populist argument here. I mean, what is popularity? In my opinion,
it's when everybody likes you and like you get to like be the prom queen
and people tell you look like Scarlett Johansson and oh, sorry, I'm spoiler. Anyway, no, in my opinion, popularity is quite an irrelevant argument in this particular respect. I think it is much more useful to focus on, but what about the laws? Because if everybody hates me, but the laws are still being made to suit my demands, does popularity really count for anything? And Liana should already know about 1982 and our Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Senior Trudeau and how much he pandered to feminism in that. So whether feminism was, and then we're talking second wave, whether feminism was popular or not, it was written into our fucking laws.
Mm-hmm. It was popular enough.
So, and what we're really getting down to is with whom? Popular with whom? Is it popular with the people who can't affect change, or is it popular with the people making the fucking laws?
Yeah, that are actually instituting change.
That is, yes, because that is what actually counts. I was just going to say, and to me, the measure would be, and what did those supposed moderates say and do about the radicals? Did they say anything? Mm-hmm. Or did they reap the benefits of the radicals' action while neither condoning nor condemning it?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Apparently, the bombings and the terrorist acts is it's an unfair label, even though this is what they were literally doing. And I like how she says, well, in part it's because there are Marxist elements. No, I hate to say this, but if it wasn't for the Marxist and communist elements, there wouldn't be feminism. Like that's what it's born out of, because it created a new kind of class struggle in the West, particularly in the second wave. And you can look into it; it's there. This isn't like, some people dismiss the whole cultural Marxism thing as some kind of conspiracy theory, the Frankfurt School and all that. But no, it's all there. It's very plain. Erin Pitsey talks about it all the time. She basically says, "Look, feminists are commies, and they're the worst kind because they're doing it in the most effective way."
I don't think Liana is stupid. Stupid. That's how we say it here. Stupid. I don't think she's stupid. But I think she's being tremendously disingenuous to say, well, people think of feminism as a monolith. And that's actually one of her little hooks that she tries to put in, saying people think of feminism as a monolith, but I'm not like that. I'm not like the dork side. But when you look at anyone, and let's just narrow down to YouTube. When you look at any of the anti-feminists on YouTube who have half a brain and are attempting to not just every single one acknowledges that feminism is not a monolith. Every single one acknowledges that there are differences in how feminism is approached. You've got coffee shop, you've got university brainwashed, and all the way up to lesbianism as a feminist act, and everything in between. I think she's kind of insulting even her own audience by saying, oh, people think feminism's a monolith. Well, by that definition, then people who follow you and believe you are dumb. So you're kind of insulting your own fans here.
If you know what you're prone to doing, what you're prone, how you're sort of programmed to a lesser extent, like biologically, how your lizard brain and your and the rest of your brain, the rest of your brain, the developed brain that we've sort of taken, all these years to evolve. All of that it's not like we have a new brain. It's more like we have our lizard brain and everything else is like downloadable patches, and so we have, or expansion packs like on a video game. So basically the lizard brain is still there and we have, those instincts. And when you know what that is, you recognize it, it actually not only helps you control and mitigate it, but it also helps you understand when you are doing something that you don't really have a problem with, but you want to understand why. For example, if you do something girly, or sort of traditionally feminine, and maybe you ask yourself, well, why am I doing that? Well, if you know that that's a part of just what it means to be a woman, like the biological evolutionary psychological stuff that involves that, then you'll be able to say, oh, well, then that's okay. Or I don't want to do this thing, so I'm going to alter my behavior. But you get to choose, and you don't have to feel bad about anything. You don't have to blame anybody for it. You don't have to say, oh, this is my parents' fault, or society's fault, or advertising's fault, or Cosmo's fault, or the patriarchy's fault. You can just be like, that's me. Now that I know that it's me, that means I know I can control it. That means I know I can take responsibility for it, take charge of it, and change it if I want to or not. So
that's all it is.
It's very liberating.
The fights that happened over porn in the 70s moving into the 80s, we're now having about video games and pop culture phenomenon movies. And the frustrating part is it's not that there isn't a point somewhere in there, and it's not that we shouldn't avoid discussing any topic. Thinking something is stupid is not a good enough reason not to have a discussion about it, right? That's a...
Okay. But if somebody calls your opinion moronic because you talk about shit you don't know about, that is reason not to have a discussion, right, Liana? I had to throw that in there because I just,
oh no,
because
I know.
I've actually asked her to come on, and you guys know the story. She said she wouldn't unless Karen apologized for something that Karen said because Liana was talking out of her ass. So it's funny that she's like, we shouldn't shy away from any conversation. Feminism's been going after porn for probably ever since there was porn. I would guess that there were people that have been trying to take it down. And the ironic thing is the other sort of, group that usually goes after porn, which is the more sort of authoritarian fundamentalist religious types, they're also something that often feminists go after. So it's like they fight each other over the same stuff, and then and they also fight the same stuff, the thing that can't be beaten.
I'm sorry.
It's interesting because this is the thing, you know, porn is never going away and religion is never going away. I don't think either of those things are ever going away. And to some
because they both
extent,
satisfy very primitive voids that people have in their psyches.
yeah. And those are things are going back to the lizard brain thing again. Those are things that will never really be rid of. I think we just have to learn to live with them. And that's one of the things that I have to say, and I'm going a little bit on a tangent here, but despite the sort of, you know, ranty stuff that Dean Esme says, I think he is right that religion is often sort of unfairly treated, because most of the time it's good for people, and I think that we tend to focus on the radical part, and that seems ironic because we're talking about feminism, but the thing about feminism is it has not gone through a reformation. It is something that needs to go through a reformation.
The problem is we can't have a discussion because everything is, I got so angry I made a sign, right? It's two people, it's two groups, hopefully just two groups, usually more than that, shouting past each other, as opposed to sitting down and having a conversation. And we could get into the structural reasons for that, but that is a deep dive.
No, not that deep, Liana K. I will answer it really quick right now. Feminists do not talk to people who can destroy their arguments. That's the reason why we're talking past each other, as you put it. I don't know any anti-SJW people, and I know this is anecdotal, but I bet that there's a consistent thread of this across all of them. I don't know any one of them that would not be absolutely delighted to debate a feminist. But the problem is that feminists, most of the time, won't do it.
What do I think of Dave Rubin? I think he serves a purpose. I think having a wide variety of people on his show is kind of his thing. It's what he does. He's not a hard-hitting interviewer. I don't think that's what he brands himself as. So it is what it is. I certainly don't. I don't think less of him for having Liana K on. I don't also think that he necessarily agreed with her. Right? Rubin has this kind of way of seeming to agree with you, and he's not. He just wants to get you to talk more, and he's very good at it. He's very charming, and he's very good at it, and it's part of what makes a good interviewer for that particular style of interview. So I watch Dave Rubin. I like Dave Rubin, but he does have a certain. I mean, this is what he does. He gets a whole bunch of different people on his show, and then fans of those people come and give him likes and money. And that's what he does. And maybe every so often something comes out of it, and that's great. But this is his thing. He just wants to get as many people's opinions out there as he can, and that's his thing. So the second thing is, question from the chat: what the fuck are feckles? It's a red dwarf reference. You know, feckles, hackles. I don't know what they are, but they're up and pointed straight at you, buddy. So that is where feckles comes from. And finally, with regard to Grand Theft Auto, I cannot wait to get to the part about the hose. So let
us continue. I will say this about Dave Rubin is a point I meant to make earlier. He had a guest on named Andrew Klavan. I watch a lot of the interviews, and Andrew Klavan is an atheist that became a Christian. And when they were talking, Dave Rubin did go in a bit on him. Like, at least he challenged him. He said, okay, you know, because I believe Dave Rubin is an atheist, and he's like, I'm going to have to push back here. I want you to explain yourself. I want you to justify this argument, and that's fine. Like, Andrew Klavan backed it up fine. You know, he made his case. That's cool. But my point is this: he pushed back on him, but he doesn't push back on her. And I don't know if it's because you know, he felt like being nice or whatever. I would have pushed back. But maybe, and this is the thing that I'm thinking, maybe Dave Rubin doesn't know as much about feminism as enough to necessarily challenge Liana K on that. So maybe he didn't feel confident enough to say, well, wait a minute, feminism was never great. Here are some examples. My guess is that he's in that same belief system, which I brought up before, where most people, atheist types, anti-SJW types that I've noticed have made the argument, well, feminism was good back in the day. It was necessary. Yeah, it was necessary. But today it's kind of useless,
But so interesting you say this, Brian, because if you look at Liana's comments section for her interview with Ruben, they thought she was too soft on him. So it's like this giant circle jerk of everybody being too nice, and I gotta wonder where that comes from. But it's a style thing.
My big wish for the Grand Theft Auto series that Rockstar just starts giving the prostitutes weapons, because that solves all the problems. I mean, the problem right now is, I think
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there. Okay, Liana K says that the Rockstar should give the hoes weapons so that they can defend themselves. And she thinks it would solve, what does she call it? All the problems?
All the problems.
There are no problems. There are problems with people. There are people who complain. Those people who complain don't play Grand Theft Auto. Those people complain from the outside, and they say, I don't like this because that. And I'm going to prove it to you by getting it banned in Australia at Target or something. But they don't play the game. So if they don't play the game, there actually isn't a problem, because it's still selling like hotcakes and everybody's waiting for the next one. So clearly it's not affecting the sales. So that's not a problem. Giving the hoes weapons, though.
Yeah, see, and from my perspective, I'm actually, I hate to agree with her in this, but I am all for giving the prostitutes weapons, because that way when I beat the shit out of them, I might get an ammo drop. It's brilliant!
Or they could just drop ammo.
That's what I mean. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, yeah, give the hose weapons. It's ammo. Come on. That may not be her perspective. I may be approaching things from a different perspective. I don't know. So. Well,
she makes another argument for it in a moment, but I think that giving the hose guns is a step too far and not necessary. But we'll get into that in a second, because she tries to do this analysis. Well, let's keep going.
It's too easy to kill these women.
It's too easy to kill these women. Now, in Grand Theft Auto, it's too easy to kill anybody.
I was just going to say, it's not just the women.
No, it's too easy to kill most people. It only becomes a challenge once the cops show up. But even then, they're not that hard to kill either, if you have like a decent fucking aim system. So it's not too easy. Like, too easy compared to what?
It's making them artificially helpless in a world where it doesn't make sense.
Artificially. They are not real women. They are pixels on the screen. That's what they are. They're not real. That's like saying that, again, by the same logic, the men and women who are not prostitutes in the same world are also artificially helpless, where it would not make sense, because if they really lived in a world that brutal, they would either be working really hard to move the fuck out, or they would be carrying guns. And I mean, like, most citizens would probably be carrying guns. There would also be children, and there would also be babies, and there'd be pets, and there'd be nuns, and like priests, and hippies, like playing guitar in the corner, and I don't know, people
To
immigrants.
clean your windshield. I don't know. That may actually happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's not meant to be a simulator, Liana. This is bad. This is a bad argument. Anyway.
Okay, go on. Go.
Not so much you can punch a woman in the face. Because I don't have issues with that, because if you look at the real world, women are fighting to get frontline combat in the armed services, full status in the police, mixed martial arts, UFC, women punch and kick each other in the face for a living. We're getting into this benevolent sexism territory that is.
Wait, isn't that what she's calling for, though?
I was just going to say, is it not benevolent sexism to specifically arm the women and not any of the other civilians? I don't know. My brain hurts a little bit here, but that may just be me. So it's exam time. But yeah, is not benevolent sexism going, we need to give the female fictional characters in a fictional world extra advantages that other characters don't have. Yeah, NPCs don't have?
They don't even have names. Like, according to, that's, now they're going to call for every prostitute and every woman in the next GTA game has to have a name. She has to have a backstory. She has to carry weapons, and that has to be like tied to her backstory in some way. Like, oh, my dad gave me the switchblade, when he was pimping.
It's engraved.
Yeah, it's like special. It's got ivory handle on it.
A pimp named Slickback written
yes.
on it. Yeah. There we go.
Treating fictional female characters in a video game they serve no purpose outside of just another fun way to interact, just like going bowling, playing pool, going to the strip club, or whatever. As you're treating them like a special kind of person is benevolent sexism.
Furiosa was the movie was fun, right? It was a 2-hour car chase. And I think people have made altogether too much of this film.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with that slightly as well, because she tries to dismiss this film as being made out to be overly politicized when it shouldn't be. And I don't necessarily agree with it, because just saying, oh, it was a 2-hour car chase doesn't necessarily dismiss the fact that there were some elements in it, in the narrative, and even in the world building just for this film, which were pretty feminist. I mean, because they did have a feminist on board, as I think she was part of the creative team, I'm fairly certain. I don't know that she wrote it, but I think she may have co-written it or something.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, and it's on the tip of my tongue, but yeah.
She was involved with the production of the film.
She talks a lot about vaginas.
Yeah.
Eve Ensler.
Eve Ensler, the vagina monologues person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I hate myself.
I think that's Eve Ensler. If we're wrong, Chad, just correct us. But
yeah.
But
oh, no.
she was on. She helped write the movie. She helped with the story and the concept and stuff. And it shows in what they did. So I think to dismiss it out of hand as, oh, well, it was a car chase and I don't know why they're making a big deal out of it. That's like no. That's I don't know if you're playing a sleight of hand thing, or if you didn't see it and therefore it's not there because, in the world of Liana K, if she sees it, it's real, and if she doesn't, it's not. But I think that to miss out on that is not doing it a service, because you could also make the argument that Terminator is just it's just a chase movie too. And because that is...
Which one, really?
Both Terminator 1 and 2. They're both just chase movies, because the Terminator is coming for somebody, and they have to, run from the Terminator and try to kill it in the meantime. But that's not what the Terminator is about,
No, I mean, and the first one, it's a chase story, but it's also a love story and a time travel story. Mm-hmm. And then the second one is just basically really disturbing and nihilistic. So, and fabulous, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And I would put Chase more in number 2 just because there's more panouts. That's my only thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's more
cinematography, right?
But and the first one was a bit, because it was lower budget. It was a bit more intimate, I guess, but it was certainly more personal. But it was.
I love you, Hicks. I mean Connor. I mean Hicks. I mean he blurs together for me. Okay.
Yeah.
He really does.
But I would say that people could make the argument that Terminator movies are just chase movies or just action movies, but
yes.
they're about artificial intelligence, killing all of humanity, and the dangers of war and all this other shit. And it's also about is the future what do they call it, can it be changed? Can you change your future? Are you destined for whatever can you change fate? So it is more than that, but a person who wants to just boil it down and be like, you're just making a big deal out of nothing. Well, I'm sorry, but I watch too many movies to miss out on what as you put it, what the subtext is.
There's an element of displacement in fantasy that you can't ignore when you do this sort of analysis. At some point, it's just fun. There was a pre-existing tradition with the aesthetic of Mad Max that they didn't want to dismantle too much. And I was fine with that. Your comment on the perfect female character, this gets into the question of, is there any such thing of a perfect female character? Because if you say that Charlize Theron, as the grease-covered, one-armed, badass, is the perfect female character, then somebody like, say, the main character of the movie Enchanted, who's sort of this princess with attitude who makes dresses out of curtains and, she's got her own kind of cute agency, you're saying she's imperfect.
No, he's not. You see, that's why he had to be careful with that word, because she's going to go after it. I think that's part of feminist programming or feminist conditioning is, when people use words, instead of asking them, okay, when you say perfect, do you mean ideal? Do you mean this is a very strong example? Or do you actually mean perfect? And then I bet if she brought that up, he would probably say, no, I was just thinking it's a really good example. Maybe that wasn't the best word. Okay, now we understand each other and like we can move forward. But no, she basically gloms onto the fact that he used the word perfect, and now she wants to take that down and say, no, you're wrong, and here's why. You know? And also, but we're talking past each other though, guys. Here's something that I got to throw out there, okay? Do you think anywhere like there be places on the net like would there be conversations like this about representation of characters in fictional things such as films, comics, video games, whatever, pop culture, about men? Would there be a conversation where a guy says, "Oh, I thought that this was like the perfect male character," and then somebody else comes in and he's like, "Well, when you define perfect, you gotta like be careful because that means that anybody who's not conforming to this very strict standard is not perfect," and that's bad because men, they need to see themselves in films, and it's important. Otherwise, they won't be able to get on with their lives or graduate college, and they'll probably end up homeless and then commit suicide because we did not represent them properly in pop culture. That will never happen. We only do this for women. And the thing is, what Liana K doesn't seem to understand is the fact that she's overly concerning herself with the way that women are represented in media is the reason why there is such a limited representation of women in media. Feminists are the reason that so many female characters are so awfully written. And I'm telling you this.
That is what I am trying to say.
Yes.
Yeah, that is exactly
They're
what
the
I'm trying to
reason
say.
why. And I mean, I hate to say this, but if I love the Marvel movies. I've seen them all. And I've seen like all of the Netflix shows, and I watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a few seasons before I got bored. But I watched all of that shit. And the thing is, even though those films are not especially SJWE, even though I think they're starting to move in that direction because the comics is way, way in there and they're just fucking sinking. I noticed that the women are the dullest, most uninteresting, the worst parts of those movies. But here's the thing, though. Like, are you seriously trying to make the argument that Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, Anthony Mackie, fucking Don Cheadle, Mark Ruffalo, and Robert Downey Jr. represent a variety of dudes? Like, yeah, because I know guys built like those guys. Like, clearly,
I know
like,
guys built like those guys,
yeah.
but they don't return my calls.
They're all my friends, and we all just look like that. That's diversity.
It's true.
And but Scarlett Johansson is the one that represents unfair beauty standards for women because it's just one woman. Even though all these dudes, they all clearly are on like the, P90X like workout plan, to the point where, by the way, Chris Hemsworth was like, I'm not doing that to my body again because I like food. So it's weird that she's saying that, oh, that represents diversity. First of all, it's not Hollywood's responsibility. It shouldn't be Hollywood's responsibility to have a character in the piece of media that they make that reflects you. It's not their responsibility. If you have a problem with that, then you have a problem. You need to fix it. Because we're not going to put a 300-pound, Black Widow in a movie just because there are fat women that like movies. That's not their responsibility, and nobody wants to see that. We want to escape. It would be like saying, well, I don't like the Harry Potter movies because they use magic and I don't know how to use magic, and so it's triggering for me to see people doing stuff that I can't do. So I think that you should take it out, or at the very least just make the magic things like, card tricks, or how to, putting the rings together and taking the rings apart, and like stuff that I know how to do because I have a magic kit. Not the crazy shit that they're doing. Like,
But wait, Brian, what if there was a superhero character who looked exactly like you? Would your opinion change? I need to know.
I'd be creeped out. I don't go to a movie to see myself. Who does that? You'd have to be okay. A narcissist does that.
The answer?
Yeah. Okay. So she brings up Scarlett Johansson because Scarlett Johansson represents the 1%, I guess.
And I came out pretty well in terms of perfect woman in the Avengers because of the physical resemblance.
What?
I've been waiting for this
Oh my
moment.
god!
Oh my god!
Oh my
I
god!
died.
You guys,
I died laughing.
We need to
when
hear
I-
that
when I-
again
oh my-
because
Yep,
I
no,
think it cannot be
yep.
overstated.
Rewind.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Is it gonna play?
And you've got Bruce Banner, who's very different from the Hulk, and you've got all these different types of dudes to choose from. You've got Scarlett Johansson. And I came out pretty well in terms of perfect woman in the Avengers because of the physical resemblance.
But the thing is, I was watching this and I was waiting for her to crack a joke, right? I was waiting for her to go like, haha, yeah, it's not there. It's not there. And maybe my Christy Winters sarcasm ring is wrong, but I keep waiting for the ha ha ha, I look like Scarlett Johansson. No. No. I think she may actually have said this with a straight face.
Oh, I'm pretty sure.
I would.
Liana K went to the Avengers. You just asked me, okay? How would I, if I saw an actor or a character that looked just like me in a film, would I change my position on that? And I rejected it as just creepy, and I think that people who really need to see themselves in stuff are like the definition of narcissism. That's literally, I want to look at a mirror, and that's what I want. Is I need to see it. And narcissism isn't just mean like the idea that you think you're the shit. It means it's the idea that you think that you're important enough that you should be, considered by everyone, whether you want to be the center of attention for negative reasons or positive reasons. And I think that and then right after that, Liana K makes a statement that she sees herself in Scarlett Johansson in the Avengers movies. She is Black Widow. Moving on to Honey Badger Radio number 80, we look at the latest sin committed by men, man-threading. And we learn that monster boobs are somehow not in fashion. You have to watch it. Skeptic feminists, you guys have said that you think that the topics of manspreading or mansplaining are so trivial that they're not worth discussing. But what you don't understand is these people are adults, and they actually have some degree of reach. They can reach people with their stupidity, their retardation. The concept of mansplaining hasn't just been in these fringe parts of the internet where there are just angry, cat-loving, radical feminists. This has actually been in politics. There have been female politicians who have used the term mansplaining when they're supposed to be talking about the direction that their country is going in. This is not trivial. This is something that needs to be called out because it's retarded, it's ridiculous. And now they're adding more to it. And what is the point of the term mansplaining anyway? The point of it is to silence men. It's simply to silence discussion, to say, despite how right you might be, despite how much more you might know about a given topic than I do, or how much more information, or how much more evidence, or how much more logic or reason you can bring to a specific discussion, I am going to tell you that you're not allowed to share that information. You're not allowed to participate in this discussion by shaming you because you're a man. And that is actually the intention of the statement.
It's interesting to watch how the term mansplaining has evolved, because it used to be feminists would pull that out if they said something, like they made a definitive statement of opinion about a man's behavior or about gender issues or whatever, and men said anything on their side of the story. The feminist would say this is happening and it's sexism against women, and men have no say in this, and blah blah blah. And a guy would come out and say, well, this is my experience. Well, quit mansplaining. And now it's gotten to the point where they're using it anytime a man talks. And if a guy is in a position of management or a position of authority, and he has somebody under him that he's telling how he wants a particular task done. It's suddenly mansplaining if the person under him is a woman. And it doesn't matter if he would say the exact same thing to a man, because she's a woman, she has the right to just assume that she knows what's on his mind. And if he tries telling her what's on his mind and how he wants things done, that's mansplaining. It's like, it's gotten to the point where it is a woman's way of expressing superiority, not just a woman's way of expressing that women's issues matter and men's don't, but overall total superiority. But feminism isn't about hating men, right?
It's so infantile, and the funny, this is feminist projection, which is often like the case when you really look at what they're saying. She says the best thing about man threading is how unnecessary it is. No, what's unnecessary is this article. This is how unnecessary. When you make an article about something that you deem unnecessary, you are making something that is unnecessary already. When you say it's unnecessary,
maybe
actually,
maybe he's like, look, this whole article is like man threading. That's why it's bad. Cause
yeah,
you hate this.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'll even take this one meta step further, and I could even make the argument that this video, this stream that we're doing right now about this article is actually as unnecessary as the article, which is making unnecessary commentary about the threading in the first place. I.e., if this article didn't exist, we wouldn't have this as the show topic. Obviously, we would be doing something else. So I won't even exclude myself from this thread of unnecessary action. But what we're doing is we're going to try and get some lulls out of it, so at least it's not, completely worthless. Because honestly, this is an argument that is so dumb, I can't get angry at it. All I can do is laugh,
We're unnecessary threading. But you gotta love the way feminists are. It's not enough that they get to avoid, that they can lock themselves in their little hug boxes and avoid speech that they don't like. No, they have to control how people talk to each other, even if they are not part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, they want to safely criticize everyone they hate from wherever they are, whether it's in private or in public. But if in public and someone comes along and says, well, actually, you're wrong because XYZ, they just lose their shit. Like, you shouldn't be here telling me I'm wrong. She even says up at the top, and this is how narcissistic they are. Go up to the top, and she says, it's called threading, and it's one of the many things ruining my Twitter experience. My Twitter. This is my space. The whole thing. And I don't mean the old social media website from the 90s. I mean my Twitter space. My experience. Don't fuck it up by threading and shit, because it's ruining mine. When I go through my feed, I don't want to see that. Basically. Change Twitter. I don't like it. Change it.
At the time, I think that was phased out. It wasn't so much that it was sexism that was the big objection to it. It was that it was too real. This is supposed to be a fantasy game where you can be anything. Why do you have to have that kind of a limitation? And there are other. I think that's the only one that actually got really removed as being too realistic, because there are limitations that various character races have and character classes have that nobody complained about those.
No.
But, as soon as a limitation is placed on gender, then boom, you get people that are going to be upset. Yep. But that's, again, I think just from my own experience, it was like, well, that's just too real world. I mean, these are supposed to be fantasy women. Fantasy women are supposed to be able to do things that real world women can't. That's the whole point of playing a fantasy character, is to be able to do things that a real world character can't. So the limitation disappeared.
Well, and I would question this too. I know that they had a limitation on the strength, but I wonder if there wasn't a bonus somewhere else for women, and they're just omitting that bit, because otherwise you basically are left with the, for the sake of game balance, why would I play a female? If they, so I wonder if there wasn't a checks and balance thing in there somewhere.
Do they understand what a succubus is?
Clearly not.
I mean, do they know that the whole point of the succubus is to use your sexual attraction so it can touch you and steal your energy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, but you know what? Here, the thing.
They know there's an incubus.
Right.
Yeah.
Only as a band. That's all they know.
But it says it right there though. Works to bring in a bigger audience.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying this is basically a commercial. That's what this is, because I can't really, frankly, and like you said before, we're talking about, these are things that have existed, since basically the beginning. There's been male abs, there's been tits, there's been whatever. These things have always existed, but now they're, this is basically a much ado about nothing situation, because they're telling stuff to us that we already know. But this is not for us though. This is to bring in a bigger audience. That's why this
could be an ad, but there is other stuff. But there is
picture of the. I just gotta say, the picture of the succubus didn't actually show anything. There was the nipples were covered by hair.
Oh yeah.
There was a dark triangle of hair where the crotch was. It was a line drawing. This was not like my parents would not have let us play the game if it was full of porn, and they're acting like this was full of porn. They'll discover something like D&D, and they'll discover it 20 years after it has existed. Feminists and social justice types, and they'll come along and they'll be like, "There's no girls involved in this," and they'll invade it, and they'll act like the girls that were already there don't exist.
Right.
And what we did and what we liked and what we were interested in isn't important, and all of a sudden it has to be their way or the highway. And if we don't like it, we're suffering from internalized misogyny, or we're mansplaining, or we're just trying to. We were the only girls and we were popular, and now we're jealous because they're there, and just all kinds of shit like that. No, we're having fun doing this thing, and we don't want you to come in and change it from what was fun to the way you want it to be, because the way you want it to be is not fun.
Oh my God, how unfun would that be?
Scott? Let me point something out too. Let me point something out here. This article is not for you guys. It's not for me. It's not for our audience that knows about this stuff. This is an article written for the normie in mind, basically. What they're doing is they're trying to, when I read this initially, I was just like, this is, I didn't want to say it was propaganda because it wasn't that ham-fisted, but there's kind of elements of it that are kind of like, they're creating this fiction. They're creating this, because Hannah obviously knows, because she was there. She, Anna knows. She was there. You were there, Brian. You guys know about these things. So when you read these things, it's like, it's a bit of an affront. It's like, what? That's not the way it was. But the normal person doesn't know that. So this is kind of like, the normal person is going to read this and they'll be like, oh, wow, that was terrible. Why did that ever happen? That's so bad. But they're going to try and make them interested in this thing because this is a commercial to some extent. They're trying to open the audience. They're trying to bring in new people that don't know anything about this. And sadly, part of what we've seen very strongly over the last 2 years is part of bringing in new people is often an appeal to an emotional response.
I'd be surprised if Wizards of the Coast would actually allow them to write an article basically saying that D&D was horrible and sexist up until just now. I don't think that's the. I mean, I don't know, but I mean that would. If this is the ad. I think that it's a really bad ad. Like, it doesn't really sell it very well.
It's not a traditional ad, but I'm saying it has elements of that.
Yeah, I think.
When I first read it. We've been a bad boy. We're ready to be good.
It's not a good ad,
feminism.
no.
D&D weathered the Devil's Game accusations, and we weathered the this causes suicide accusations. And gaming culture will weather this as well. These people will continue to try, and eventually everybody that really loves the game will get sick of them and tell them to get the fuck out. That's basically what's going to happen here. And they're in the end, they're going to end up really floundering for an audience. So you'll see more of this. You'll see them going more for the normies because that's the only people who are going to listen to them when they do this. Acknowledging female sexual power pisses feminists off. They want to say women are victims. They want to say women have no power. They don't want a type of power that women have over men acknowledged at all. And this shit about, luring men to their deaths being a trope, and the idea that it's not a real thing. Look at all of the times, protect your women, come home to your women, your women are threatened by the other, the big nasty other that's coming in to invade your country. Look at all the times that is used to get men to go into war. Look at who was pinning white feathers on men during World War I and World War II. It wasn't other men. It wasn't other men shaming them into going to war. It was women. And it was pretty young women that would come along and pin a feather on you. It was women shaming men into going into war. And it was the idea that you were responsible for her and that you wanted her approval and you wanted her respect. The idea that women don't have the sexual power if we don't talk about it is stupid. Is flat out stupid. And the idea of feminists trying to eliminate it by saying that we can't ever have it portrayed, that's not going to get rid of it. And it's not going to get rid of people's awareness of it. It's just going to be one more demonstration for us that feminists are not honest and that they hate men. Like, blame men for women's sexual power over men. That's great. It's not like men are exercising it without women's consent. When a woman acts as a lure in a situation like that, or when a woman acts as an enforcer in a war situation like that, that is her choice. She chooses to do that. She decides she wants to be part of this thing that's going on. And it's not women or men exercising power over women. It's women exercising power and control over society.
We hope you enjoyed this clip show. If there was a clip from these shows you think we should have shown, please leave a comment on the video and include a timestamp. Thank you, and Badger on.